Creating a D&D quest from scratch can be really difficult, and what can often happen is that we have an idea which doesn't quite work, but we still try to force it into being the central pillar for our quest. With that said, there's not always a need to just scrap it entirely and start again. No, what we can do is simplify our questing idea and move it to more of a secondary role, make it a side quest. So today we're going to talk through a scenario where we were making a quest, recognized that it maybe wasn't the best idea for our main quest, then reorient it to be supplementary content that the party can get into if they so choose. Before we jump in, here's an entirely too short summary on the primary quest whose creation gets its own video. Basically, the party are ambushed by some bandits, then go to the local town to get more information on them, then they head to the bandit camp and take them out, or they side with them. Spoilers. And so let's discuss this quest's origin. As we developed our ambush map, the suggestion of placing a chest as a trap was made, which would be followed by many more suggestions, leading us down the path of quest discussion. Maybe the party was commissioned to get what's on the chest, but it's too heavy and locked for the bandits to take, so they use it as bait. Somebody here can be like, hey, I actually hired some guy to transport me this magical chest from, Clockensterily all the way to the Cradle of Deviants. They haven't turned up. Can you go check what's going on? Maybe they're still in town, blah, 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 blah. And that can be one entry point for this quest. And another entry point can just be the party go along this road. This premise would be developed into the chest containing an immovable item, with the questing thrust being the party needing to figure out how to move it so they can keep it for themselves or return it to the person who it was meant to be delivered to. Cool stuff. But obviously we need to figure out why this magic item is immovable. I think it could definitely be a situation where it's it's too heavy to move, and maybe the only way you can move it is if you have a special key, basically, or we could just invent some magical item that it's inside is actually a magical item that you cannot move. It literally is bound to the chest unless you are holding this other magical item. And when the party get that, they can pick it up and just move it freely. Just like the central premise of this quest being simple, return the lost item, the dilemma was purposefully simple as well. The first magic item can't be moved without a second specific magic item, so you need to acquire one somehow. I wouldn't prescribe how the party can learn the information about how this item works. I'd be fluid with it. Some good arcana checks would do the trick. Talking to an NPC that knows about magical items would equally unlock its secret. Or really any logical sounding method the party wants to attempt. Keeping these things interpretable allows for ingenuity and agency from the party, which in my experience always leads to funner, more joyful sessions. With the ideas flowing, we discussed the possible starting point for this quest specifically. I wonder if we could also tie it into the bandit camp later also. I think we definitely could, but we can also just have tentacles, different tentacles that just interact with different things, and it can be super nice if they're all tied together, but it's they can also just be separate, and it's this can be sort of a side quest off the main bandit quest. While having side quests being entirely unrelated from main quests can be great, if possible, I do love trying to connect the main elements and the side elements together. Maybe the bandits can have the item, but they don't know that that's how it works. They're not keyed into that you need to be holding the two at once to be able to move it. So it's actually in the bandit camp. They need to kill the bandits, get the item, and then they'll be able to move that item. And that allows the party to also take the item for themselves. If they go here, then the person's gonna be where's the item? And I guess they could get commissioned and then just take the item for themselves, but then they have bad blood. But this way, they can go and they can grab that item, and then they can just have it. So I think that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna have the bandits also have the magical moving stone, and they just haven't put two and two together. One key aspect we were still a little vague about was how exactly the party was going to find the person who was having the item transported to them. As with the rest of the quest, mystery was not the answer. We'd place a trade order on the corpse of the merchant, or on the bandits who killed them, or in their supplies, anywhere really where the party are destined to find it. This trade order says exactly who they are and where they live in the Horn of Radagon capital. So when the party finds this piece of paper after the initial ambush, then they have a really clear direction about where to go next if they want more answers about this item. I would complete this quest on a different stream, and before I started, I thought all I needed to do was figure out the item and the NPCs. However, as things often do, the quest would balloon in certain ways and new directions would be entirely established. This was mostly initiated when using a randomizer to get some characteristics for our item buying NPC. I like the idea of them being a rogue smuggler, because I was thinking they were a pretty prominent individual in the Horn of Radagon, right? Maybe like a powerful archmage or something, but this has very much reoriented them to be maybe a little bit on the underground, right? They themselves are a criminal figure. And the acquisition of this item is not done as some sort of artifact moving hands in a very proper and above board way. It's a, criminal underground moving of an item that's maybe been stolen. And maybe the person who does own it doesn't actually have proper right to the item in the first place. Very much changing the dynamic of the quest, I think. We would expand on this immediately with our second NPC, being a monk who has stolen the artifact originally and is sending it to the Horn of Radagon to help the revolution. And with this little bit of connection to our world's lore, we'd entirely double down. Maybe they are part of the revolution and are still here in Antiquenia doing their thing, putting in the work. They've stolen an item and they're trying to get it out. This is actually the Kane Society's capital city. The Kane Society being one of the two major criminal factions in the world. So this makes a lot of sense as kind of being a Thieves Guild related quest. And perhaps the Horn of Radagon or Antiquenia, we could have this side quest actually lead into a Thieving Guild's quest. If they, if they do end up siding with Yusun, maybe Yusun can be like, hey, you did us a solid, and while they'll give them money, and we said the reward is maybe a little bit paltry, not as good as it could be, one of the big rewards they could actually get is if they befriend Yusun and they work with them, then the party are able to get access to the Thieves Guild or have this criminal organization that they have good relations with. Building off this, we'd use the background of these characters and the lore to add dimensionality to the decision-making process. I like the idea of, if the party have just sort of done their bandit camp quest and they never meet the owner, then they can just take it. There's no consequences because nobody knows that they would have it. There's no reason for anyone to assume. However, if they have met the owner and then they sort of take it and don't return it to them, then we can make the person in the Horn of Radagon capital quite a powerful figure. And this could really affect how they're able to exist in the Horn of Radagon. Maybe their reputation is bad or they're wanted criminals in this entire nation, specifically the capital. This person might also hire bounty hunters of their own to track down the party. So we can also have, the result of this quest lead to further consequences for the campaign as a whole. And I sort of like that dichotomy of if they keep it for themselves under situations where they're basically stealing it, then they got to suffer the consequences. After playing around with the idea of having multiple magic moving stones the party could acquire from different sources, we'd decide to simplify the quest. Firstly, cutting out any options that would really lead to any alternate locations and interacting with too many different planned NPCs. This includes a segment we discussed where the party meet the aforementioned monk PC who stole the artifact originally, an NPC who explains where they can get more magical moving stones, and then there's stealth maps where they can go into a temple and steal more, and so on and so forth. With this slimming down of our pre-created optionality, we would much more directly track this side quest to our main bandit quest, where the bandits at the bandit camp not only have the magical moving stone, but one day after the quest begins, they'll figure out what it does and what it's used for, and then they'll go get the main magical item, leading to a situation where the bandits can bargain with the item in exchange for the party helping them deal with their issue of being hunted by bounty hunters. This dedicatedly entwines the two quests together, creating a scenario where the party is very likely to properly engage with the full extent of both of them. To me, this is the preferred solution because more of the work we've prepped will be experienced by the party, both extending out this small campaign arc with quality pre-created content, but also lessens the amount of our work which will be left, ignored, and forgotten. So far, I've been referring to our titular immovable magical item pretty generically, but I would very purposefully keep it unspecific. So I have been talking about this item as just a magical item, right? Just generically magical item. And I've been doing that purposefully because I don't think it needs to be anything specific. It can be whatever it needs to be, and it can be very situational to the parties and the campaign that is being run. It depends on what level they're at or how strong and how powerful you want to make it, what sort of classes and what sort of characters that you have. And this is a really good opportunity just to create any fun item that could go here. When we actually do the quest and run it, I will have a very specific item that it is from the start. But just in the planning phase before we actually are about to implement it, there's no need to pick anything, I think, at this point. Despite this, we would give some outline for the item, specifically around its rarity. I think as far as rarity goes, we can lean into legendary or just straight up artifact. I do want this to be like a super strong item. And the fact that it's really difficult to acquire, it's quite hard, it does take the party a lot of legwork, is one aspect to it, but it's also not theirs, right? Like if they choose to keep the item, then they are going to be hunted and tracked down. Like people want to get this back. So having this sort of, yes, we're giving out a legendary item as like one aspect to it, but in almost every scenario, like they're going to be hunted for it. Like it's not just an item they can keep and be like, I have this legendary item. Like there are a lot of stakes and consequences. It creates bad blood in a lot of different, you know, in the Horn of Radagon, it can kind of cut off their ability to sort of connect with people here. Even in the Kane Society and Antiquenia a bit, like we can have these sort of calamitous consequences for keeping the item, but in turn, it does really need to be a super good item. And I think just having it be sort of a legendary item achieves that. We'd end up fiddling with the quest a bit more, giving an option for the party to return the item to its rightful owners in Antiquenia, giving them good relations with the relevant factions there, and also providing the biggest gold reward. We also made the Yusun interaction slightly more Thieves Guildy, requiring a special code. As we did flesh out the details, as I said before, I'd purposefully avoid making it too expansive. I wanted to ensure that it would stay simple and supplementary to our main bandit quest, knowing that depth and complexity I haven't even considered will be added by the party during the sessions. Overall though, I'm super happy with how this quest turned out. Repositioning it to be a secondary quest which is tightly connected to the main quest is where it functions best in my opinion, while also creating it in a way where it purely bolsters our main quest without taking anything away from it or making the whole affair too confusing. In total, a rousing success. And that's the video. If you're interested in trying out this quest, it'll be available from my store in the comments. You can also join the Patreon to support the channel and get access to every quest and map I've ever made. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this, follow the Twitch to give suggestions that might lead to entire quests yourself. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!